and welcome to this session on recommendations for complementary feeding practices. I am Dr. Mukesh Yadav, Senior Specialist Pediatrics at Sanjay Gandhi Memorial Hospital, Government of NCT of Delhi. Under this topic, I will be discussing the 8 guiding principles for complementary feeding. In the previous sessions, we learned that the poor maternal nutrition during pregnancy leads to fetal stunting. The first 1,000 days offer a window of opportunity to improve stunting with the help of good maternal nutrition and child nutrition. The action taken to reverse the stunting after 2 years is either too late or not responsive, and therefore good nutrition during pregnancy, exclusive breastfeeding during first 6 months, and the complementary feeding along with breastfeeding are crucial during this phase of child's development. Let us talk about complementary feeding. Complementary feed is the feed introduced to the infant when he or she completes 6 months of age along with the breast milk to meet the growing needs of the infant. In this session, we'll discuss the 8 guiding principles of complementary feeding one by one. The first guiding principle is timely introduction of complementary feed. What do we mean by this? This means the introduction of complementary feed at 6 months of age, not before that, not after that. As you can see in the graph, breast milk provides all energy that a child under 6 months requires. Breast milk contains the right nutrients and hence there is no need to provide any other food. In terms of quantity, it is important to remember that the more a mother breastfeeds, the more milk will be produced. So, most mothers can provide enough breast milk to feed their child exclusively up to 6 months. Now, if you see at the right side of the graph, you will notice that after 6 months of age, it becomes increasingly difficult for breast milk to fulfill all the nutrients that a child needs. There is an energy gap. That is, the child begins to need foods other than the breast milk. At 6 months, infants are also developmentally ready for other types of foods. However, breast milk still continues to provide more than 50% of energy needs. Also, in children from 12 to 24 months, the energy gap increases, but the breast milk continues to provide about a third to 30% of the child's energy needs. It is important to remember that complementary feed should not be introduced either too early or too late. Introducing complementary food too early may cause the baby to breastfeed less, which leads to reduction in breast milk production. The child may also suffer from low nutrient diet, as breast milk is all the nutrition a child below 6 months needs. Early introduction of complementary feed also increases the risk of illness due to less protective factors, and complementary feed is also not as clean as breast milk. The child below 6 months also faces difficulty in digesting the food. There is also an increased risk of a mother getting pregnant, as the breastfeeding acts as natural family planning method. Now let's understand what happens if you introduce complementary feeding too late. Starting complementary feed too late may mean the child does not receive necessary nutrition and increases the risk of nutrient deficiency and malnutrition in the child. The second guiding principle in complementary feeding is safe and hygienic food. Hygienic practices are essential for food safety in all the involved steps, be it storage, preparation, or feeding the child. Why do you think it is so important to prepare and handle the food in hygienic manner? It is because it prevents contamination and reduces the risk of diarrhea. Good hygienic and proper handling of food is maintained by firstly Washing hands with soap and water before and after you prepare food and feeding, and after disposing child's faces. Food should be cooked thoroughly by using safe water, and food should be kept at safe room temperature. It is also important to keep raw and cooked food separately. Clean utensils should be used to prepare and serve food. The use of feeding bottles should be avoided as it increases the risk of infection. Let us now look at the third guiding principle, which is adequate amount and meal frequency. Adequate complementary food is essential for proper health and development of infant and young child. Complementary food is introduced at 6 months of age in small amounts and is gradually increased as the child grows older, while maintaining frequent breastfeeding. Let us have a close look at this chart. Through this chart, we understand that at the age of 6 to 8 months, there is a calorie deficit of 200 kilocalories per day apart from the breast milk. This deficit is completed by providing half of 250 milligram of ball twice a day. We start with 2-3 tablespoons and gradually increase till half of 250 milligram balls is reached. Now at the age of 9 to 12 months, the calorie deficit is 300 kilocalories per day. This deficit is covered by providing at least 3 meals, each of half ball of 250 milligram per day, and 1 or 2 nutritious snacks. At the age of 12 to 24 months, there is a calorie deficit of 550 kilocalories per day. This deficit is filled by providing at least 3 meals, each of 1 full ball of 250 milligram per day and 1 or 2 nutritious snacks. Each meal must be made energy dense by adding sugar or jaggery and ghee or butter or oil to address the issue of small stomach size, which can accommodate limited quantity at a time. Let us discuss the dietary diversity, which is the fourth guiding principle of complementary feeding. Diverse and nutrient diet is very essential for the physical strength, mental development, and protection from illness of the child. Complementary feed should consist of at least 4 different types of diverse and nutrient-rich food items from 7 recommended food groups daily. The 7 recommended groups are: first, grain, tubers and roots; second, legumes and nuts; third group is eggs; fourth, dairy products; fifth, flesh foods like fish, chicken, meat; and sixth group is vitamin A rich fruits and vegetables; and seventh, the other fruits and vegetables. Children should be given easily available, cost effective, homemade, less spicy and softer food. They can be given combination meals of cereals and pulses like rice and dal, or roti and dal, or mashed potatoes, bananas, etc. Drinks with low nutrient value and thin consistency such as tea, coffee, juice, soap, and most importantly commercial foods, they should be avoided. A very important guiding principle of complementary feeding is consistency and texture. This is the fifth guiding principle. The complementary food should be such in consistency so as to meet with the developmental, readiness of the child for chewing, munching, and swallowing. The consistency of the food is very crucial. Complementary feed should be semi-solid and not liquid food like dal ka pani, juice, cow's milk, etc. Complementary food at the beginning of 6 months should be thick porridge or well mashed foods. By 9 months, mashed food along with finely chopped items that the baby can pick should be provided. By 12 months, most children can eat well cooked and chopped food. Food that may cause choking like nuts, grapes, or raw carrots that are difficult to swallow should be avoided. Now let us see the demonstration for the right consistency of the food to be given to the child. In this we can see this first portion, it's flowing down very fast. This contains too much of water. The second consistency is too thick, child will not be able to eat this. But as we can see, the third consistency, this is going down very slowly and taking the shape of a tongue. This is the right consistency to be given to the child. The sixth guiding principle strongly recommends continued breastfeeding along with complementary feeding. It is very important to continue frequent and on-demand breastfeeding until the age of 2 years or beyond, as the breast milk provides for half of the requirement of the child till the age of 6 to 12 months and about 1/3 of the total requirement from 12 months to 24 months. Breast milk provides higher nutrients than complementary food, and research show that breastfeeding reduces mortality among children who are malnourished. Now that we have learned what to feed, how much to feed, and how frequently to feed, now we come to the most important aspect of complementary feeding, that is how to feed. In this regard, the seventh principle of complementary feeding is responsive feeding. What do we mean by responsive feeding? Responsive feeding means mother responding to the child's cues to feed. This enhances the child's cognitive as well as motor development. Complementary feeding should be timed. It should be a family time of feeding, but the child should be given a separate plate. And the principle of responsive feeding should be followed. Now we'll see a demo to understand what exactly the responsive feeding means.
अनु चलो चलो बेटा, मम्मा खाना बना के लाई है, अच्छा सा खाना है, वेरी गुड फूड है ना, कितना यमी यमी, येलो भी है, रेड भी है, सच्चा गुड फूड। तो क्या करेंगे, हाथ धो लिए है ना बेबी ने, अभी धोए थे। चलो अब हम इसको, हमारे कपड़े नहीं गंदे होंगे, हम बिप को लगा देंगे। सो वेरी गुड, चलो जल्दी जल्दी खाएंगे, है ना। सारा खाना ख़त्म करना है हमको, तो सारा खाना ख़त्म करना है। ये भी खाएगा हमारा बेबी, चलो सारा खाना खाएंगे। पेट भर गया, देखो चिड़िया आ रही है, चिड़िया खा जाएगी सारा खाना। और ये बंदर कहाँ से आया? नहीं, बंदर तो नहीं है, भैया आ रहा है, भैया भैया खा जाएगा सारा खाना। ओके, अब नहीं मन कर रहा, चलो ठीक है। अब हम कौन सा खाएगा? ये खाएगा, चलो ये आप ही खाएंगे हम। गुड बेबी है, ये आप ही खाएगा। चलो हो गया फिनिश, चलो ये भी हटा देते हैं अब हम आपका बेब। अब क्या करेंगे? खेली खेली करेंगे, है ना, डॉल के साथ खेलो खेलो। चलो।
Feeding during illness is the 8th guiding principle of complementary feeding. Complementary feed during illness is very crucial for early recovery and prevention of undernutrition. As the child falls ill, his or her appetite decreases, but the child should be encouraged to continue eating. Mother or the caregiver should give soft and foods favorite to the child in small amounts and in increased frequency. The sick baby should be breastfed more frequently, and it is important to increase the number of meals after recovery. Now that we have discussed all the 8 guiding principles of complementary feeding, let us have a look at the situation where we have a fussy child or a child who creates fuss while eating. Most of the children are fussy when they are made to eat when their stomach is already full, or they are force fed, or they are fed something which they don't like, or they fed in the environment which is too distracting for them, or sometimes when mother is in a hurry. Now, what to do in such a situation? We follow the principles of responsive feeding. Be patient and encouraging. Ensure that children are not given unhealthy snacks. Observe his or her cues to eating or being fed, and sit facing the child and engage with him or her when feeding. Now let us quickly recap what we have learned through this session on complementary feeding. We have understood what the complementary feeding is and what are the 8 guiding principles of complementary feeding. First principle is timely introduction of complementary feeding at 6 months of age. Safe and hygienic food. Third principle is adequate amount and meal frequency. Fourth guiding principle is dietary diversity. Fifth is the right consistency and texture. Sixth being continued breastfeeding till the age of 2 years or beyond. Seventh is responsive feeding. Eighth being feeding during illness. Hope you have understood the session very well. Thank you for being with me through this session. And let us now have a look at 3 very important videos in relation to complementary feeding. Thank you once again.